So, Mr. Curtis, tell me a little bit about yourself and why you decided to get into this race.
Yeah, so for people who don't know me, I'm best known for running a website called FARC, which is a news aggregator. It's what if The Daily Show ran the Drudge Report. It's been around 17 years, which almost predates almost all digital media. We have 8 employees. That's a distributed virtualized company, so there's no workplace, and everybody lives wherever they happen to live, San Francisco or Indianapolis or wherever. And then I live here, servers are based here, company's based here. I own 100% of it, which is unusual in tech circles. Usually at some point somebody's gotten venture capital at some stage, and I never did. Mostly because by the time I got to the point where I could get it, I didn't need it. And so it's a fully bootstrapped, digital company. And the best way to explain it for people who have not heard of it, how far into the national zeitgeist it is, it's been a category on Jeopardy twice. And once during the Tournament of Champions. And I recommend if you go on YouTube, you can find at least one of those videos, and it's great because the contestants were completely confused by what was being talked about.
So what made you want to run for governor of Kentucky?
Yeah, so initially it came, in my line of work, it mostly involves reading every news article that's printed every single day. So I sort of more or less have an idea of what's going on. And I'm not a very political person, was not really interested in politics for all of the reasons that people who are not interested in politics are not interested. But I was complaining about sort of the lack of quality candidates and the fact, why wouldn't, qualified people step up and try to get the job? Because this is more like being a CEO, yet somehow we have to, have an election process that's more or less the way that, the high school elections work, where, it's the football guy or it's the cheerleader or whatever, and they're just playing their networks to get elected to. Granted, in high school, it's not that big of a job, but government is arguably one of the more important things in our lives, and for some reason, we've got a very primitive way of selecting candidates. And so I was saying, well, people who are qualified should run, and I got challenged. And they said, well, you should run. And I was like, well, I don't want to. I said, why not? And I was like, well, because it's hard. Who wants to go through all that? And they're like, yeah, but here's the deal. It's like you like talking to new people. You've done a lot of media interviews. So you know what that's all about. You have good ideas. So if you're complaining about not having a good candidate to choose from and you're not willing to run, then you have no right to complain. And I thought, okay, that's fine. I should probably do this. And on top of that, I had a friend of mine who had a similar situation. She ran for a judgeship. She was an attorney, didn't particularly like the judge, thought that the judge did a bad job, so she put her hat in the ring and she won. And this was last year, and I was like, okay. That's exactly what I'd been talking about, doing. And so it was like, that's when we started to put together the resources to figure out, how does this work? How do we make sure that we can make a run that, actually has a chance of winning?